Welcome to Straightway Through with Gina, the podcast where we say it straight, we say it true, we say it with kindness, every time, to the best of our ability. I'm your host, Gina Mangello, coach, writer, creative. I help highly sensitive overthinkers take action in their relationships. This podcast is all about communication, all aspects of communication. You'll leave with insights into how to communicate better for more meaningful relationships, whether they're romantic relationships, friend relationships, neighbor relationships, coworker relationships, business relationships, any kind of relationship. Stay tuned for today's guest. Eric.
Hi,
Yes,
Gina.
Eric, it's good to see you. I am
too.
looking forward. Thank you. I'm looking forward to this conversation tonight. When I asked for guests, you were the first to raise your hand, and you chose difficult conversations as the topic that appeals to you when it comes to communication, the things you love, the things you hate, whatever it is. I'm curious, what had you choose difficult conversations?
I just find myself at a time in my life where I'm having to manage more difficult conversations. I wasn't quite ready for some of those conversations. I'm not an expert on difficult conversations. It's just fresh to me right now. So I wanted to navigate them. I'm listening to podcasts about difficult conversations. I'm trying to read about having constructive conversations, building self-confidence. Those things were really what I was trying to navigate to help myself be more prepared for conversations that are difficult. I also found myself having difficult conversations and not enjoying my results because I was misstepping. I was emotional, or I was overpassionate. So I think some of the things that I'm trying to learn is that the most passionate, loud person in the room is not necessarily the one that, for lack of a better term, wins.
Wow. Wait, we got to stop there because you've said so many things. I mean, that's packed. And before we go on, this is our first episode, and I really do want to set up a pattern for myself. I do want to pray before we continue. And I'll share it, being that this is the first episode. The reason why I would like to pray in these podcasts is because I think that so many struggle in relationships. And there are people everywhere that I talk to every day that are having really hard times in their relationships. And I personally believe that God is the number one go-to when we're having trouble in our relationships, because sometimes no matter how smart two people are, no matter how much they have practiced their communication or built communication skills or built confidence, like you were speaking of, they come together and they still clash and they don't know what's wrong. And relationships can really drive them into deep pain and suffering. So I always want God to lead these conversations because I believe that the people who are going to listen to you and I have this talk can really benefit from something that will come through, I find, easier with a prayer to start it off. So I will get back to everything you said, but if you don't mind, I'm going to pray just a short prayer. So I ask Father God Almighty for all the guidance and the insight and the sparks to come through and fill this conversation in a way that can help people in their relationships, whether it's their relationship with themselves, their relationship with their spouse, their relationship with their family, their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers, their bosses, their employees. So many relationships are in trouble, and it hurts people to their core when their relationships aren't right. So I ask God to please guide this conversation in a way that will bring value and hope and answers to our listeners. And I ask to be open to hearing God before I ask a question, before I answer a question, before I speak. In Christ Jesus' name, amen. All right. So, Eric, I I love everything that you said. It was full, it was packed. My first question for you about what you said is what's your objective? I know you might have different objectives in each one of your relationships, but what's your objective in having a difficult conversation?
The objective is really not one-upsmanship. It's navigating the conversation, and much like your prayer, I think we have to be open. We have to be open and give grace to the person that we might even be having that difficult conversation with,
Mm,
to have perspective or try to understand their perspective, having empathy, perhaps. So we feel there's a difficult conversation coming that might be hurtful for us,
mhm,
and that other person might be in control of the conversation, and that's why we feel it's difficult. But why are they coming to us with this? There might be very legitimate reasons, professional reasons, things that we've done that were hurtful, something that's made that relationship out of balance.
mm,
And having the grace to understand where they're coming from might be helpful. I've also tried to forgive, and also apologize.
mm.
Uh, we can't move forward unless we can be on a ground where they're more understanding.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful. What do you think makes for a hard conversation, a difficult conversation? Meaning what's the difference? How do you determine, oh, this is a difficult conversation and this is not?
Well, professionally, I'm trying to navigate a career, and we have colleagues that might disagree with that direction, and know that we have limited ability to not move forward if we're not moving forward as a team. Um, Especially if you're having a conversation and that person might be your superior, your person you report to. Uh, I believe those are difficult conversations to have
Yeah.
when you're expected to have a certain outcome, when you want to object to the direction because you see it a different way, but it's not your call. You
Mhm.
still want to have influence over the direction,
Mhm.
a little bit of autonomy, or maybe a lot of autonomy over your work. I think those are difficult conversations to have when two colleagues or coworkers uh, don't see eye to eye on the vision or direction.
Mm. I think when you said with a superior, I have found in the past when past jobs, I had many jobs over my life and many bosses. And in past jobs, I found it hard to go have those difficult conversations because they were the ones that were calling the shots, like you said. And why would they care? Why would they didn't ask me for my opinion. They didn't ask, right? Even though I thought, maybe I have something to offer here. It was really hard to go with that and find a way to say it. I always did. Well, that's not true, not always. But in most cases, I would do that. In some cases, I would not. And it was a lot of the reason why I wouldn't do it is because I thought if if I talk about what I'm passionate about, my emotions are going to come through. And that is going to be not a difficult conversation, but a bad conversation.
Mm.
And I think that that's something to really differentiate between how do you have a difficult conversation without making it a bad conversation. And like you said earlier, grace, listening, being kind and compassionate to the other person, those are all really important. And when you say like not one upping a person, most people go into conversations, the hard ones, the difficult ones, with an objective And it does become almost like a competition of needs. Here's my needs. And that's why I asked you, what's your objective? Because most people will have an objective for, let's just say I have a neighbor and my neighbor is playing loud music. And I think I used this as an example in one of my posts when I was talking about the podcast. Let's say they're playing loud music and I'm faced with, do I go to them or not? They're not doing anything legally wrong. It's disturbing my sleep. Let's say it's 2:00 in the morning. If I go to them, they might say, who cares? This is my space. This is what I do. And then what do I do? Right? Or they might silently hate me and it might ruin the relationship. So that to me is an example of a difficult conversation where I have to decide, like you said, how to give them grace, how to be kind, how to be compassionate, how to understand that them wanting to play the music is just as important as me not wanting them to play it. And then how do we find this place where we can have a conversation where it's not about my needs versus your needs?
It's really interesting. I think that when you have a disagreement, trying to win the disagreement is never winning. Nobody wins.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody has to give, and somebody's going to lose that. And even if you win, you're losing the relationship. You're not building the relationship. If you're winning, you're not gaining the relationship that you want to have with your neighbor, with your coworker, with your friend. And I think that trying to win a conversation is a losing game. So finding, I can't address the music scenario because
you like to play music.
I like to play music. I don't know that lately if I'm up past 10:00 though. So
right.
I think that you slowing down, understanding, having conversations. I mean, my first thought was, let's bring them some music that we both like, or try to find music.
But what if it's 2:00, Eric, and I want sleep? And I don't have it. I don't have this issue. Okay, I don't have this issue. But this is a really common. I think it's a common issue, and it doesn't have to be music, but it's when people live in close proximity, they live differently. And it could be about the way people do dishes. It could be about music. It could be about the way they don't keep up their trees and they're coming over to your property. It could be about so many different things. But how do you approach those conversations? What I have found is over many, many, many mistakes and errors and messes, I've made many, many messes in terms of having difficult. I've been very courageous in having difficult conversations, but like you said before, they don't always go well. And I've learned over the years that one of the ways to approach situations like this is to not necessarily go in with an objective. Meaning, if I go in with an objective, like I'm going to get my neighbor to care about me, have compassion for me, change, do something different, then that objective is a block to us having a conversation. But if I go and I share what's happening, I say, can I share something with you? I'm trying to sleep at 2:00 and the music wakes me up and it's really, really hard for me. I have to get up early. It's hard for me to get up early. I wind up being very frustrated. I've tried earplugs, but they hurt my ears. I give them a whole story and I say, look, I understand this isn't your problem. It's my problem. It's my problem, but I'm asking you, could we talk about it? Could we just talk it over and see if there's anything that we can do where we're both happy? Because I don't know if I've said this to you before, but I'm not a fan of compromise because I think compromise literally means two people lose. Right? It's like if you and I compromise on something, it means you're not getting what you want and I'm not getting what I want. How is that a good deal? So when I go to the neighbor, I say, how could we work something out where we both win?
So they get Wednesday night.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. We'd have to work that out.
That's
But
a
then
very
but yeah, but then it's like what you were saying. Then it's still relationship building rather than objective about what I want.
because if somebody loses, somebody compromises, the relationship's going to change.
Mhm.
And maybe you want it to change. In this scenario, I definitely want it to change
Mhm.
in a marriage or a boss
Mhm.
or a professional relationship. To me, the conversations need to be us slowing down our tempo,
Mm.
listening more, being more confident in our words,
Mhm.
um, versus apologizing for what we feel.
Mhm.
Um, we don't need to apologize all the time.
Mm.
We feel a certain way, and in difficult conversations, we just need to be confident, assertive, without being rude or abrasive.
Mhm.
I think those are tactics,
Mhm.
slowing down our cadence because we're emotional, making sure that we take pauses in a conversation where it could escalate. Silence is always our friend.
I agree. Silence is our friend.
It feels more natural to want to overexpress
Mm.
and be passionate about what we're talking about, what we're feeling,
Mhm.
but those are our feelings, and we're already in a difficult conversation.
Mhm.
So navigating is more listening, more controlled cadence,
Mhm.
and being confident. I say things like "I think" a lot,
Mhm.
and that's a weakness in my speech patterns.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with saying "I think that's a good idea,"
Mhm.
but replacing things with "I think" with "I'm confident that we can find a solution."
Mm.
Instead of saying "I think we can find a solution,"
Mhm.
saying "I'm confident we can find a solution."
Right. That's a good one. This approach of yours, with slowing the cadence, silence is your friend, keeping your emotions in check. Did this all come from being highly emotional? I mean, was this a switch for you, or was there something in your life where you saw people regularly who were not doing that, and that's where you went in the opposite direction? I mean, how did you land on this approach?
You're right. I was the most passionate person in the room and not really waiting to take a temperature
Mm.
and discovering that my approach was just extremely abrasive.
Mm.
Even though I'm passionate and excited and it's a positive thing that we're talking about,
Mhm.
I might say, let's just get this done. And other people are uncomfortable with that approach.
Mm.
A lot more people were in the room thinking, I can't do that. I, I'm not comfortable doing what he's asking or saying that we should
Mm.
do.
Mhm.
Realizing that I was so passionate about my thoughts that at times I was the only one believing them.
Mm.
So listening, especially in group conversations, listening to the room, making
Mhm.
sure that we all hear each other and giving each other turns, not talking over one another, even if we have something really important to
Yeah,
finish,
that's hard. That's hard.
right?
Mhm.
That's a really hard one. Like, well, we have a point. We want to get to that point, and somebody has a personality that just interrupts.
Mm.
They interrupt. They have something just as passionate as I am. They have to say their thought.
Can I share something? Can I interrupt you here?
Please.
I actually love when I find my match for interrupting, I love it. To me, that's the ideal conversation, meaning I love when I'm in a conversation with another human being where we both interrupt each other and it almost feels like we have become one conversation. Like the interruptions don't feel like they're cutting me down or I'm cutting them down. It's an interesting dynamic because those relationships do exist. I have plenty, and they're to me they're fun. That's a fun conversation. I interrupt, you interrupt, meaning like we're not interrupting to insult one another. We're interrupting to continue creating this conversation that we're creating, and those interruptions become part of the beautiful creation. It's hard to explain. But then there's other people who don't like interruptions at all. And they get very upset when they're interrupted. Understandably so. Everybody's allowed to get upset with whatever they want to get upset with. So there's no upset. I don't have any upset about that. But I have to know that that's the person I'm talking to. And when I don't, I naturally interrupt. Like here, I'm giving you space to talk because we're doing a video and I want to and you're here and I'm so happy you're here and I want you obviously to have the space to talk, but my natural way of relating is interrupting, and it's not to cut you off. When the other person does it back to me, I love it. It's like tennis. It's a tennis match, right?
Well, I
Like
love
imagine.
that too, because I think that when you find that person,
Mhm,
you have a rapport that might be the
mhm,
same person that you might not see them for 5 years, and the next time you see each other, you pick up where you left off.
mm,
That
mhm,
might be a real simpatico uh,
mm.
in
Good
in
word.
a relationship. But when you're in a different situation, for instance, if we in this new world, if we're in a meeting with 5 people on a Zoom call,
Mhm,
and we have a really important contractor that we hired, and they interrupt the people that are project managing.
mhm,
They don't let them finish their thoughts.
mhm,
So there's a professional courtesy too, right?
mhm,
So we're having difficult conversations. So I feel in those scenarios, and I haven't always been the one to back off conversations.
mhm,
It's a new practice for me. It's
mm,
something where I'm trying to listen more and speak less,
mhm.
and use my ears and mouth in that ratio.
Hmm. Yeah, I like what you're saying, and I guess my point in relation to what you're saying, to in hearing you talk about the value of not interrupting. And I, of course, like interrupting, but I also understand the value of not interrupting, especially in those professional situations. Although I've seen many of professional situations play out where there's lots of interrupting, so it goes either way. But I think my point, at least what I'm sensing from what you're saying and what I'm saying, if I could find a way to blend them together, is that it's really important to know who you're talking to. It's really important to know what the other person's preferences are. If I know I'm talking to somebody who does not like interruption, then I've got to do my best to respect that boundary. And I think that too often we assume that everybody's the same, meaning like people who don't like interruption, they believe that that's the way to have a conversation. People who like interruption, like me, I believe that's the way to have a conversation. So if you put those two people together, the one who likes interruption and the one who doesn't, they both can't, it's like they can't find that connecting point. But a lot of times it's because they haven't had the conversation first that said, hey, I like interruptions, hey, I don't like interruptions, and then we've got to come to a way to communicate that allows for us both to win.
I'm really curious about your family dynamic, and like, did you have this dialogue with your family that just is nonstop and going back and forth?
Remember, family's always the hardest to have conversations with,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Always the hardest.
So I have a different way of speaking that you speak very quickly, um,
Mm,
very articulate when you're not. I, however, I want to think about what I'm going to say before I say it,
mhm,
and often I will stumble if I
mm.
try to go too quickly. To the point where I grew up like this, and I remember my sister would say, "Can you get to the point?" And I'd be like, I would be so upset by
Aw,
just hearing, "Can you get to the point?" That being more assertive and being more confident in my speech and pausing as opposed to trying to stumble or stammer through finding the words.
mm,
That's another great way to pause.
mm,
If you are the type of person like me who says a lot of ums, I
mhm,
notice that some people say like in
mhm.
more modern speech, and they're really places where we should take a pause
That's right.
instead of saying like or we should just pause.
That's right. 2 things. One is the way that you've decided to communicate, slow, paced, with silence and pauses, it creates a lot of room in the conversation. That's a real benefit to a conversation. It creates room, it creates space, it feels spacious. And I think that's why you're such a good storyteller. I've told you a few times you're a really good storyteller. I think that's why, because you create all that space when you're telling the story. And
Hmm,
that space feels good to be in.
thank
The
you.
second, you're welcome. The second thing that I want to comment on as far as what you just said, what was it, or it's a question, not a comment, but what was it that had you upset when your sister would say, get to the point? Would you just get to the point? Were you upset because you felt like she didn't care about your process in getting to the point? Were you like, what was the reason you were upset? What was the reason for it?
That was it. That
That
was
was it.
you were right on because
Hmm.
I believe the tangents are so important to the story.
Mm,
So if I'm telling a story and I'm passionate about my story, I might tell you about this. It might be a poorly told story,
hmm,
but it's so important for me to tell you about the tangent
mm,
and how it brought me. I often bury the lead in my
mm,
storytelling
hmm.
and tell a lot of tangents to get to the ultimate story. And I believe it was my sister that said, "Will you just get to the point?" Which made me feel like she didn't care about that story as
Aw.
much as I did. And
Hmm.
that's okay
Hmm.
because we said that earlier. We have to know our audience.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I wonder if you had said to her, "I would really like for you to listen to my process. That would mean so much to me." Do you think that would have could have possibly changed? Maybe she would have said, "No, just get to the point." But but you see, it goes back to what I was saying before, where when you put 2 people together, the one just wants the point, the other one wants the process. And if you both know that when before you start engaging, it could really help the communication.
Yeah, I believe that could. I mean,
Mhm.
we have difficult conversations every day, and I'm trying to get better at them all the time, right? But
That's awesome. Yeah, me too. It's a never-ending process. It goes on, and that's fun. It's fun that we get these challenges every day, even though sometimes they really hurt, or they really have us feeling sad for as long as we allow ourselves to feel sad. So I do get that. I don't want to make it sound like these difficult conversations and difficult relationships are all fun, because by all means, not a lot of people are having fun. But it can become fun when we start bringing in these things and thinking about these things and connecting with each other in a way where we don't assume that the other person knows who we are or what we want or what we like. because they're different and they might want or like or do different things.
That's true.
Yeah. And I have one more question. I mean, maybe more, but the one that's in mind right now is what so when you say I used to be really, really passionate, I used to have all this passion and I wanted to get it out and I wanted to share it. Is that kind of like the the young spark of coming to understand things and see things and then wanting to share it with other people and influence them and make a difference in the world? Is it like that kind of energy? And then did something happen to say, uh-oh, this is it. I'm at bottom here. I need to flip things around and do a different approach. Like, what was that? What was it like for you? What was that process like for you? What was that passion about? And then what actually changed you?
So the passion hasn't gone, right? So I
Okay.
still have deep, passionate feelings about my. I'm fortunate enough to work in agriculture, environmental agriculture, and for a nonprofit,
Mhm.
and I love it. I,
Hmm.
I, I absolutely love it. And working in the world of nonprofit, I feel like everybody who works in a nonprofit sees a challenge that needs to be fixed,
Mm.
sees the change that needs to happen in the world,
Mhm.
and wants to be a part of the impact. So when you see a possible solution and you know that you can impact change,
Mhm.
you want to tell everybody,
Yeah.
right? Why wouldn't they want to be part of our solution?
Yeah.
We collectively we found this wonderful solution,
Mm.
and I just think that if I'm talking more than listening, I'm not getting other perspectives. I'm not learning. So we might find, I don't want to put anybody down, but you know, I feel like conventional or chemical farming
Mm.
has hurt the
Mhm.
environment. And looking at environmental um, regenerative uh, practices in agriculture can be restorative instead of extractive. And
Mhm.
now I want to listen to people that know more than I do instead of
Mm.
being passionate about, I found this solution. I work with this group. We have a
Mhm.
great solution. And just to go on and on and on, but to have a collective conversation
Mhm.
about approaches
Mhm.
because we've been doing this for, in my experience, 15 years.
Mhm.
Change hasn't happened.
Mhm.
So now we have to include more people in the conversation. What have we been doing that was good, and what can we change, and what can we improve? So there's conflict within all of that, from working with partners and corporate corporate stakeholders and government and non-government and academia. Everybody has something to say,
Mhm.
and coming together and having some of those difficult conversations, but knowing that we all have to exist or coexist. Uh, and how do we get to the other side of that conversation?
Mhm.
It feels really important to listen more than talk now. So, to answer your original
Mm.
question, the passion is still there. I just know that listening is more important and learning is more important, and still carrying that belief and passion and perceived solutions
Mhm.
forward can help in the end.
But what do you do with that passion now that you can't just shout it out from the
I channel
mountaintop?
it. So I channel it.
Mhm. Into what?
I encourage partners,
Mhm.
alliances,
Mhm.
build friendships, build partnerships, build strength in
Mhm.
numbers,
Mhm.
find common ground.
Mm. I like what you said about farming can be restorative instead of extractive. And I think that applies to relationships too.
Mm,
It's like these difficult conversations, they can either be restorative or extractive. And that's what we're going for is restorative. Finding ways to have restorative conversations, just
yeah.
like you're finding ways to have restorative agriculture, which is a great effort.
Right.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there anything about our conversation that's been difficult? I think that's where we'll end. For you, and then I'll share for me.
Yeah, I want to make sure, I think in difficult conversations, whether it's a job or a review or an interview or a complicated partnership, we should be more comfortable not to have all the answers.
Mm.
And make sure that when we're going into a difficult conversation that we don't need to turn it into uh, we're going to get to the answer in this conversation. We're going to have this conversation. And if we stick to our balance, if we stick to our intentions, if we stick to our authenticity, it feels like we can get to a place where we're having real conversations without being combative. So,
Mhm.
what was difficult about this conversation tonight
Mhm.
was I feel compelled to want to make sure that I give a good answer to every question,
Mm. Mhm.
and I don't always have one.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you acknowledge that. I think as humans, we always want to have everything perfect. At least most of the humans I know.
Mm,
Perfect answers, do our best, be great, make a grand entrance and a great exit. And the funny thing is, or the interesting thing is that most of life is valuable in the mess. From my experience, it's never the perfection. Like think about it. If you find somebody tomorrow that you don't know, a stranger, and you have a perfect conversation, what does that do for you? If you find somebody tomorrow and you have a messy conversation, you mess up, they mess up, maybe they trip, you trip, something happens, it doesn't go well. There's all of these little pieces that make it imperfect. It has so much more substance to it. Like I find that when I read something that's perfect or talk to somebody that's perfect, it doesn't move me.
mm,
I don't feel moved by it. I feel moved by the realness of life, and I think the realness of life is always in that messy where because if your goal is to keep growing as a human being, it's certainly my goal, then I have to always be doing new things. I have to always be walking with courage into new places and do everything I can that I don't currently know. And I have to allow myself the mess, the unintentional mess, but the mess. So I love the mess, and I totally get what you're saying because I am a perfectionist. I think many humans are. I don't think that's an odd thing, but I do have that part of my mind that wants to get everything right and do it well. I have that, and I always have. But in the last couple of decades, I have given myself permission to be messy because I know that's how I grow. So I love that you shared that that was a difficult part for you, is wanting to get everything right. I think you got everything right. I think you said amazing things.
thank
And
you.
there was a little bit of mess to make you real. I don't
Hmm,
know where that was, but it's here. Your presence, right? Your the way I think our conversation is a beautiful opening to a bigger conversation about restorative relationships
hmm,
instead of the extractive relationships. Like you said that, and that's huge. You were talking about farming and agriculture, but to me that is has everything to do with the goal of a relationship is for it to be restorative
that's great.
instead of somehow taking away from one person or another. Anything you want to say to that?
Well, I want to address the perfectionist in you.
Mhm.
I I once heard somebody say that we set people up. This person was talking about children, that we set them up practice makes perfect.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
it's a setup.
it's a setup.
It's a setup. So
Mhm.
that person changed their way of stating that by saying, practice makes progress.
Yes. Love it.
Practice makes progress, and we should never set ourselves up for perfection.
Love it. That's a great reframe. And I like process too. Progress and process. For
Yeah.
me, process is one of my favorite words because progress still puts the pressure on. It's like still like I've got to make progress.
Hmm.
I have to show some sort of movement, right? But
Oh, that's good.
process is like I don't know, process could be backwards, it could be forward, it could be to the left, to the right, up, down, and that process is so valuable.
Yeah,
So practice makes process. I love it.
that's great. I love that.
Yeah. All right, what was hard for me in this conversation? What made it difficult? I would say being very diligent with not interrupting. Because I'm that tennis player in conversations. I love the back and forth and it doesn't mean that I can't appreciate conversations without that. And I think that's what you gave me tonight is you gave me patience. I had to have patience. I had to have patience to give you the space to be you because I know it's important to you. And that was hard for me, but it was also fun. So thank you.
I like the interruption.
You too.
I
Okay.
don't ever lose that. That's a great quality, especially when you find the right tennis partner.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you. All right, this has been really fun. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you rose your hand for number one and are here and we had this conversation. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Thank you for doing this. I think
Aw,
it's going to be a really important podcast.
that's so wonderful. I appreciate that. Thanks for being here today for Straightway Through with Gina, a podcast where we say it straight, we say it true, we say it with kindness every time to the best of our ability. If something hit home today, pass it on, share it, like, subscribe, join the community. If it's time to say it straight to yourself, I have a daily journal prompt delivery system that gets you one journal prompt each day in your inbox so that you can get to know yourself more deeply and start saying it straight every day. Because when you say it straight to yourself, you can say it straight to others. I'll leave the link for that community in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Until next time.